Okay, today we're going to be taking a look at this concept of your martial arts journey, right? And especially if you're focused on traditional martial arts or pulling things from the old ways, right? This keiko kind of idea, right? It's one of the reasons one of the meanings behind our martial arts uniform, right? Sometimes called a dogi, right? Dogi, dojo clothing, more specifically, or it hints toward enlightenment clothing, right? But there's this other term, kikogi, right? Kikogi. Keiko means old ways, right? So keiko, keiko, the study of old ways, keikogi, clothing for the study of old ways, right? So I get a lot of questions from students about how to get the most, right, out of their training and what their martial arts journey is going to be like, right? Or what elements are a part of it, right? Now, this doesn't mean that everybody's doing this, right? Some people just want to focus in one area, whatever, right? And that's why often my own teacher, right, Hatsumi Sensei, Grandmaster of the Bujinkan, would make a definite distinction, right, between self-defense training, martial arts training, budo, right, real martial arts, and this idea of warriorship or, breaking through to the gokui or the kotsu, right? The essence, the essential nature, right? Every technique, your path itself, whatever, right? Ourselves, right? We have this, right? The gokui points more to secrets, but kotsu, right? This essential nature. But anyway, more to the point, there may be or may have been like a couple of terms that you may have run into or been exposed to in your studies, right? Words like Taiden, right? Kuden, Shinden, right? If you follow along with me on my weekly Kuden podcast, right? There's a reason that podcast was given that name, Kuden, right? But there's Taiden, Kuden, and then this thing called Shinden, right? And again, you change the kanji, you change the meaning or whatever, but just very, very briefly today, we're going to dive into these things and, we'll go from there. And I'll add some references, right? I've got this Kuden, we've got our Kuden podcast. Like I said, we've got the Warrior Whiteboard Wednesday thing that pops up on YouTube every week that goes into things more specifically, right? And then there's these other things that direct students get and things like that, right? But what I want to do is take some of these things as well as some of the programs, the books and worksheets and all that kind of stuff that we provide to students, right? And put them into context, right? And kind of where they belong and how to make sure that you're getting this full experience and you're actually on this path, right? As opposed to just enrolled in a course of study. Okay. So again, I'm going to keep this brief today. We go into this much more deeply in our weekly Kuden podcast and in other areas, but I just want to kind of put this thing together in a collective place so that folks have a better understanding about what's going on. Okay. So very, very quickly, again, Taiden, Kuden, and Shinden, right? So Taiden, right? Tai is body. Den typically translates as, in this case, right, as transmission, right? So body transmission, it's about the physicality of training, right? Where do you put your body parts? How do you move? Techniques, kata, skills, those kind of things, right? This, by and large, is where most people focus, students and instructors, right? It's the part that has, I would say, the most objective, tangible results, right? It also makes people feel all warm and fuzzy because, they can strike things, they can break things, they can throw somebody, apply locks, holds, and throws and all that, make them feel like a superhero, right? Not a problem. It's an aspect, right, of this journey, of our martial arts journey. But if that's what all we're focusing on, then, we've signed up for a course. We've signed up for, I don't care if it's a 6-week how to be a cool ninja warrior course, or we signed up for the yellow belt course at a school, or we've signed up for an online black belt home study course. Doesn't matter, right? If our focus is on just the physical techniques, that's Taiden, right? So an instructor who's, that's the focus, right? When they're passing that on, if that's their only focus, then the term used for that instructor, right, from Japan is sensei. And I know lots of Westerners throw this around and they play with different nuances and all that. But what we're looking at, right? Sensei is not just a martial arts teacher. Sensei is a teacher. Okay. So a student in secondary school, high school, whatever in Japan is going to call their teacher sensei, right? But a sensei is someone who typically, right? And are there those, exceptions? Of course, right? But a sensei is typically someone who conveys knowledge about a subject, right? So if we're learning martial arts, right? Sensei is going to teach you techniques, okay? Here's how to do this, right? Copy the way my body's moving, copy this position, copy that, whatever, okay? Copy, right? It's an important aspect, but it can also be a limitation, okay? So part and parcel with that, very often, right? But not as often, or not as often, it's intentionally, right? Okay, one of the big things that we try to focus on is the difference between living intentionally and living accidentally, right? Lots of people produce results because they're doing what they were taught to do, they're doing what they think is right or whatever, and they produce results, right? But is it intentional based on a grand plan, right? A dream, a vision, a goal, whatever, or is it just, since they said I had to learn this, so I'm learning it, and then I'm going to regurgitate it for a test, get my belt. I keep getting belts till I get a black belt, and then I get to be a sensei, and then that kind of thing, right? So Taiden's important, right? But going part and parcel with that is this idea of Kuden, right? Kuden typically translates as void transmission, right? So with this, there's a deeper level of connection with the teacher that's going on, but it's more focused on and pointing to the things that are not necessarily physical, right? Okay. They can go along with physical things, but not everything here is physical, right? So, we could talk about the skills, and let's say I'm teaching you rolling, leaping, and all that, and you say, Sensei, I really don't like that. I don't like those things. And I'm going to say, nobody ever said you had to like it, right? Can you see where somebody might get the jump on you, and next thing you know, you're crashing toward the ground, and knowing how to do break falls or rolling or whatever to minimize damage, to recover quickly and all that would be a benefit. Okay. So that's why it's in the curriculum, right? So there's these lessons, right? But you could get it from the teacher just kind of explaining the techniques. You could get it from reading books. You can get it from watching videos, right? I mean, I'm conveying things this way, right? This is a big part of the Kuden podcast kind of thing. But the other thing that goes along with the Kuden is not just the mental understanding about your techniques. The teacher can be putting things into context, right? And their personal reason whys, right? Like my law enforcement and military experience, and, almost getting shot in the head and all those kind of things, right? And explaining the why of a technique, right? Or the why that certain types of training are important, right? Scary or not, preferential or not, pleasant or not, doesn't matter, right? Here's the context, right? Here's how this has served me, right? Here's how I have watched people who have broken these rules that we're trying to convey to you. Here's my experience of watching this person get dropped like a rock, or watching the life fade out of their eyes, those kind of things, right? The teacher explaining their own journey, that kind of thing, right? So there becomes more of a deeper understanding of the why of training, right? So if we could borrow some of these English words, like if we were writing a report, or if we were a reporter doing a news story on the who, what, when, where, why, and how much, those kind of things, right? Taiden is more of the how, right? So when you come to class, or you come to a seminar, or you take one of our online courses that are physical or whatever, right? You're learning the how, right? How this is done, right? jumping on a kuden or listening to anybody else or reading a book by Hatsumi Sensei or any teacher or whatever, right? Could be Zen in the martial arts or whatever, right? Okay. Which, by the way, is a very highly recommended book, right? But anyway, the kuden aspect of things, right, puts things more in context, right? That's the why, right? So whether it's my kuden podcast on Monday nights or it's Whiteboard Wednesday on Wednesday afternoons, right? One tends to be more life, right? The Kuden podcast tends to be more life-oriented kind of things and putting into context how to produce better results outside of the realm of fighting and physical survival and stuff like that, right? Because there's two realms to study, right? There's the dragon realm and there's the tiger realm, right? The dragon realm is about developing those skills that allows a warrior to produce results in society, in everyday life, right? And the tiger realm are the skills and all that to allow you to survive and produce results on a battlefield, right? The general understanding is those skills don't serve you in the opposite realm, okay? You bring tiger skills to everyday peaceful society, someone's going to kill you or lock you up, okay? Or things are not going to go well, right? If you bring the dragon realm things, right? Etiquette and compassion and all those kind of things, right? Onto a battlefield, that's going to get you killed in a whole different way, right? So that's kind of the Kuden direction, right? The Whiteboard Wednesday things, now we're more over on the combat survival, the tiger realm kind of side of things. So Kuden is more the dragon realm. The Whiteboard Wednesday is more the tiger realm, right? But we're still doing this big picture kind of thing, right? The strategic thinking and how to get more out of your training and suggestions for drills and all that, but it's still this big picture kind of thing. And then Whiteboard Wednesday points to either one of our programs, points to a Friday virtual masterclass that we have that people can tune in virtually or come in for class, or it points to seminars that we're doing or whatever, where you're going to come in and you're going to learn the how, right? So Kuden, right, whether it's podcast or Whiteboard Wednesday, the knowledge aspect, right, strategic thinking, logistical thinking, and how to frame things. I give you frameworks and all that kind of stuff, right? That kind of thing points to the Taiden, right? So it's just like in our traditional ryuha, right? The lineages, right? And not just ours, right? Any keiko old ways training, right? Most people say traditional, but traditional, somebody throws the word tradition at me, first question out of my mouth is, what are you talking about? Okay. Because things can be called traditional, but it might only be 2 generations old, right? We have a tradition in my family of things that we do around the holidays that was started by my grandmother, but we still use the word tradition. Okay. How far back are you going? See, people use words, but the words are empty, right? You need to point to certain things, right? Kind of like using the word samurai, right? Samurai. The word samurai comes from the verb samurao, to serve, right? But samurai, the term, the title, samurai, right? Everybody has this fantasy about it, right? And what they really mean is like a bushi, right? Knight, right? Okay. Because samurai was a rank, and the person who had that title designation had very different roles and responsibilities at different times in history, right? So traditionally, right, what the hell are we talking about? In what era? Okay. And at what point did they stop using the term samurai and they start using the term bushi, right? We're talking about the same category, but see, rank, responsibility, leveling, class, that kind of stuff, very, very different, right? See, again, this video is all about, it's the Kuden, right? Just kind of sharing things, right? But then there's this whole other area of training that people don't get, right? And, I hear students say this all the time, right? Online training doesn't work, right? Dojo training is best, right? Because you get this connection with your teacher and, you learn more and they can correct things on the spot and whatnot. But again, my question is, what makes live training better? Okay. And how many different ways can live training take? Okay. Do you have to be in a dojo? Do you have to, that kind of thing, right? So generally speaking, This, right, stops at Kuden, right? If I stood up and started demonstrating some physical things, we're in the Taiden realm, but it's my nature. I'm going to be explaining, right? So you're getting Taiden and Kuden typically from me on a regular basis, right? Watch any of the videos, right? Throws a lot of people off because they just want to, Sensei, just tell me where to put my foot. Okay. Well, you want to stick in the Taiden, right? How about if I tell you where to put your foot, but why it goes there in this context? Okay. Ego wants simple and quick. Survival and not dying at the hands of somebody trying to beat, break, or kill you. Not simple and not quick. We can train to get ourselves to a point where we can make it happen very, very quickly, right? But the training process, yeah. So, but anyway, right? So, but there's this other level, right? And it's when a teacher-student connection occurs. And I don't mean a financial one, like you enrolled in one of my programs, okay? I mean, the student sticks around for a significant amount of time and a bond occurs, okay? My teacher, Grandmaster Hatsumi, used to describe this. He says in Japan, right, there's this saying, and it could have come in from Japan, from China, whatever, right? But I'm just giving it to you the way I got it, right? That there's like 3 levels of a bonding relationship kind of thing, okay? The parent-child relationship is first level. The husband, wife, or partner, whatever, right? Significant other relationship is level 2. It's a second level, right? The teacher-student, sensei-gakusei connection is the third level, okay? If you understand these things, you get that there's more to it, right? Like parent-teacher, or I'm sorry, parent-child, right? What's going on is a provision obedience kind of thing, right? Or provision, loyalty, love kind of thing, right? That's the connection, right? If the parent stops doing the parenting things, the child could end up dying, right? Based on how the child acts and behaves and all that kind of stuff, that could get more provision or whatever from the parent, right? But this is a first level learning kind of thing, right? Parent teaches, child learns, okay? Because the child doesn't know anything about the world, okay? But there's this connection that has to do with, provision, and we use the term neediness, right? Second level, when you have significant others, right? Now what you have is a partnership relationship, okay? So between these two people, there's a mutually beneficial kind of thing going on. Well, hopefully, right? So love and things like that, it's not that provision isn't going on. It's not that one person might not be teaching the other person something or whatever, but it's an equals kind of thing, right? Each person is bringing something to make this a mutually beneficial relationship. Each person is giving something, each person is getting something, and it works as long as it works, right? So that's different, right? The love between parent and child is different than a love between significant others, okay? And that's lust and intimate, the lust type intimacy completely aside, it's different, okay? You get to a teacher student, sensei gakusei kind of position. And I'm using sensei in a very broad term here, but what I'm talking about has to transcend I teach, you learn, right? Me grog, you ugh, whatever. You signed up for something, I'm going to teach you that thing. Congratulations, here's a certificate, your graduation of Thursday's class at 3:00 kind of thing, right? It's way beyond that, right? Because there is that provision, there's a providing of lessons and a receiving of lessons, right? There's a loyalty and a trust that's going on, right? There is a provision, direction, obedience kind of thing going on, right? But it's voluntary on both sides, okay? So the relationship, like when a student joins my dojo, it very often starts out as I signed up for the Thursday 3:00 course, right? But if they stick around long enough, we learn more about each other, right? They're learning more about my personality and the way things get presented and all kinds of things, right? So a different kind of relationship occurs, right? There's a type of intimacy that goes on, right? And I don't mean like significant other intimacy, but there is a connection, a bond that begins to form, right? And that continues to grow, trust and things like that. And the student is getting more, right? In our martial arts journey, we're getting way more out of it than just learning how to do some cool moves, how to roll, how to leap, how to, whatever, right? And we're also learning more than just, the history and the philosophy and things like that. If we have a teacher that's living the path, then they're not just teaching moves and they're not just regurgitating or parroting what somebody else taught them or that they read in the book or whatever, right? They're living the lessons. So we start to recognize, right, at this third level that my teacher is always teaching. Whenever he's solving a problem or she's solving a problem, whenever they're talking, whenever they're communicating, whenever they're walking across the room to flip a light switch, whatever, right? There's a lesson being conveyed, right? And so Shinden, right? Heart transmission, okay? The spiritual transmission, that kind of thing, right? There's more of this connection, but at the same time, we also understand we're both grown adults. This is voluntary, right? But there's something more, okay? And this is what happens in a dojo. It's what happens when the student's in class, right? There's a deeper trust. One of my students the other day, he's actually a pastor, a minister, and he mentioned as well, we were talking about this, and he said this transcendence, right, just goes way deeper than anything you could explain. And he's absolutely right, right? It's kind of like friends that if you've ever had a friend that you meet them and it feels like you've known this person your entire life, right? I have a couple, right? We've been through similar situations or the exact same situation, right? Typically, they're law enforcement, security, or military, not necessarily the same, right? We could have done it through training, right? Whatever. But we could not see each other for a decade. Reach out, have a phone conversation, whatever, chat online, meet up for lunch, whatever. And once we get a couple of the, oh my God, your kids are 10 years older. Holy crap, it's been 10 years, whatever. All those little unimportant things, right, are out of the way. The general experience is like, we just talked to this person last week. There's no, oh my God, I'm sorry I didn't keep in touch. Or there's no guilt or shame. Dude, like, phones work in both directions or whatever, right? There's none of that going on because we understand life happens, whatnot, but there is this bond, there is this connection. And at this higher level, at this Shinden level, there's that kind of connection with a teacher. And it almost rolls back full circle where the teacher is in the parent role and the student is in the child role. But it's not like this person is not capable of living in the world. They're an adult, right? It comes full circle, but there's this thing going on, this living thing, right? That's why in our long distance programs, now there's some standalone programs, but there's email coaching included with it, so you can get some questions answered. But in our inner circle and our platinum level programs and all that, where somebody becomes one of my personal students, right? There are weekly coaching calls, right? So we get on these calls and there are topics that I teach on or whatever. Very often they're open Q&As where students can ask questions and I'll answer them and whatnot. So we're still kind of within the Kuden kind of realm, but the calls are opened up with, hey, how you doing? What are you working on? How are things going on? What's going on with the family? That kind of thing, right? Or somebody will talk about, kind of a challenge that they're having or that they'll be having, and that'll kind of shift things into a whole different realm, right? Now, we're not in the dojo, but we're on a live call, right? Could be a video thing, could be just an audio thing, right? But there's this connection, there's this bond, right? And more is going on than just learning martial arts, teaching martial arts, studying martial arts, it becomes about life, right? It becomes about connection and relationship and the spirit, the realm of the spirit, right? And a lot of the kotsu, this essential essence, right, of the art of any part of it, right, and the gokui, these secrets, right, this is where they're conveyed, right, because very little of the shinden can be conveyed in words. Very, very little of the shinden can be conveyed in physical form by teaching a technique, right? I mean, ultimately, we're in the physical realm, but it's not the same. Okay. So Taiden, that's easy. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? Copy that, right? Kuden, right? There's some limitations to that, right? Some of it points to physical, right? I took some notes here, right? Taiden, right? In ninjutsu, right? We have this idea of 3 aspects of a ninja, okay? It's the miwo shinobu, right? The body trained and kept in a state that allows it to handle challenges and hardship. Okay. The kogoro shinobu, right? The mind developed to a point where it can handle challenges and hardship, right? The shinobu nin, right? Perseverance, endurance, right? The ability to win in the face of overwhelming odds, that kind of thing, right? So the body able to handle challenges and hardships and things like that, right? The mind able to handle that, right? And then we have the Shikiwo Shinobu, which is about like spiritual fortitude, right? Spiritual endurance, that kind of thing, right? Where there's this internal, external kind of reconciliation going on between natural laws and how I'm operating and whatnot. But, do I need somebody to be there to bail me out? Like I'm on top of the world as long as everything's going fine. But as soon as things get rocky, unless somebody steps in, tells me what to do, right? I can't handle things, or I get angry at the drop of a hat or whatever, right? It's this, no matter what's going on, stresses, anger, fear, whatever, there's this indomitable spirit, right? That just knows that, look, if I can handle it, I'm going to handle it. I'm not going to worry. If I can't handle it, not going to handle it. I'm going to wait and be patient, right? Not worry, right? And if I can't do either one of those things because it's going to kill me, I'm not going to worry anyway either because there's nothing to do, okay? But again, this is all part of this, like I said, martial arts journey, right? So I'll provide some links in the description below for some of these things that I talked about or whatever, but here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The thing is that each one of these transmission forms is important to our overall development if we're walking a path, if we're doing this quote unquote traditional martial arts kind of thing, right? So you can grab that link and download that worksheet that I made for you, right? That kind of points in these directions, right? Because I'm on the worksheet, it also outlines not just the Taiden, the Kuden, and the Shinden, or the Miwo Shinobu, Kokoro Shinobu, Shikiwo Shinobu, but it also aligns to our Kuji, these higher level powers, these 9-syllable seals, and how they relate, and how each of these transmission levels points to these things for complete training. And if that's your thing, then I highly recommend that you take a look at this thing, right? I'm going to add a video to the end, a recommended video for some of these things, right? Not necessarily a video, but a link to, check out one of the Whiteboard Wednesday lessons, right? To see how that kind of thing is formulated. There'll be also one, and it might already be on your screen at the moment, of one of the Kuden episodes, right? I tend to be a little bit longer, so take them in chunks because there's more to it, right? There's more to things than just where do I put my foot, where do I put my hand, okay? Those are important when I'm trying to not die at the hands of somebody trying to beat, break, and kill me. But what about when I'm trying to produce results in the world and I'm facing challenges that a shito or a stomp kick or a sword or whatever, it's not the answer. It's not the answer. Okay. So anyway, check these things out, right? Go click on one of these things, right? Go down to the description, right? Click on the link to get the worksheet and any of these other things, right? There's a couple of other things down there, right? To continue the journey, right? If you're serious, okay? There are the steps to continue the journey, right? And I'll see you on the other side.